Welcome to the podcast. Chris Graham and Rod Mullins, a special midweek podcast for us here on a Thursday because we had some midweek NASCAR news. Rod and I have talked a lot the last several weeks, last few months, about the charter issue in NASCAR. We reported a couple weeks ago that 13 of the 15 teams had signed their charter agreements, two had not. 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, and we got some news on that front there, Rod, as far as what the next step is for 2311 and Front Row.
Yeah, it got dropped on us yesterday. I mean, I think a lot of people were expecting it, but it got dropped on everybody yesterday. And, I first found out about it from the reporting of Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports. And Bob is one of the NASCAR insiders and everything. And I'm just going to tell you, when I first started reading this article, I said, this is something that NASCAR is going to have a tough time trying to overcome because this is a lawsuit. It's an antitrust suit. It's a monopoly suit. And it has nothing to do with the monopoly game. It is just simply saying that NASCAR controls too much, doesn't let the teams have a say in things, and they're out to change it. That's as simple as I can put it.
Yeah, it alleges that, let's see, go through the story that you wrote yesterday. It alleges that the France family achieved monopoly level profits through their ownership and control of NASCAR, exploiting the position as a singular premier stock car racing authority in the country. Now, the suit was filed in federal court in North Carolina. And Rod, I read a column yesterday in The Athletic where the writer speculated that perhaps Front Row doesn't take this action unless Michael Jordan's involved. And I wonder too, not just that it's Jordan, but that it's somebody from outside of the racing world. Jordan played in the NBA. He owned a team in the NBA for all those years. The NBA is a league that for many, many years has had a labor agreement in place. The teams are partners with the NBA, the league, just like in MLB, just like in the NFL, NHL. And it's a very different relationship in NASCAR. NASCAR is owned by a private family. The teams are granted the ability to do their thing by the ownership family. So maybe it took somebody from outside, so to speak, to come in and say, why are we doing it this way?
Yeah, I have to agree with that because if we go back about 60, 65, maybe 70 years ago, there was the first rumor going through the garage area at these NASCAR races I think Richard Petty was involved with it. I know, at least in that regard, Lee Petty was involved. There were a number of the drivers that were involved that wanted to have a union. And Big Bill France, who was Big Bill Sr., as a lot of people would refer to him, he put his big foot down and he said, no, we're not going to have any union. He said, if we have a union, then there's not going to be a NASCAR. So you give, this opportunity for these people to drive, and yet this is like a slap in the face to the people that put this on to let this stuff happen for you. So, I kind of see that as one thing. It kind of dates back that far, and nobody has really ever challenged it. The only people that I would have thought that maybe would have challenged it might have been your Richard Childress or your Rick Hendrick Motorsports teams. You would have thought that they would have had something against it. But the surprising thing was when this charter agreement was signed, 2 weeks ago, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago, when it was all put together, Rick Hendrick's reaction was, I'm just tired of it all. I'm just tired of it all, and he signed. But we've not gotten the full story on what was the reasons why he signed in this whole thing. But exactly going back to what you're talking about, Michael Jordan is technically the outsider, even though he grew up around the sport, knowing the sport, knows Richard Petty and different things of that nature. He's still an outsider, and he's looking to shake up some things and make it affordable for all these teams because, hey, look, he's one of the younger guys coming into the sport. If you talk about team experience, and he's coming into the sport and, he's had everything against him from the get-go. And look where they've gotten to, what, in 2 or 3 years. They have managed to at least put some people in the top 10 racing with Tyler Reddick, also Bubba Wallace, although he didn't make the playoffs this year, but they still have some potential for the future there. So, I mean, hey, Michael Jordan is a businessman. We cannot go and rule that out either. He knows what's good. He knows what's going to be great. And I think Front Row Motorsports is probably going along with the same kind of attitude. Jordan knows what he's talking about. These lawyers know what they're talking about. We're going to go with them on it.
And you noted in your story that the lawyer that Jordan hired, along with Front Row Motorsports Bob Jenkins, a guy named
Mhm.
Jeffrey Kessler, is not somebody to trifle with. This is the guy. Now he's a known antitrust lawyer, a well-known antitrust lawyer here in the United States, but also he's the guy that, I mean, filed the litigation that opened up college athletics academic revenues the way it has the last few years.
Mhm.
So they didn't just hire a lawyer; they hired the lawyer in this field.
Yep.
They're not messing around, and so that's gonna be interesting too to see. On the one side you got a really high powered lawyer, an expert in his field, that maybe the leading
Mhm.
guy in his field. Then you got NASCAR, stubborn as they are. I mean,
Right.
this could be an interesting battle.
Yeah, this is one of those things of where the line in the sand has been drawn, so to speak, and it's like crossover. I dare one of you to cross over. Now, here's the thing: both teams plan to run in 2025. Now, that's already been talked about. Bob Jenkins with Front Row Motorsports and Michael Jordan and Denny Hamlin both have agreed. Yeah, they're going to run next year, but that's opening up this Pandora's box for a lot of things. What's going to happen along the line? There are people even talking about this sort of thing of, wonder how significant, wonder how tense the air is going to be this weekend at Talladega when they go through inspection. Because there's going to be a lot of people that's going to say 2311 and Front Row has just raised red flags up almost immediately and saying, hey, look, we're challenging NASCAR. So, NASCAR, let's go and let's find something to nitpick them about or something just kind of aggravate them a little bit more. And what happens? It's money, it's fines. That's all this stuff is. I think that's a little bit petty if they go to that point, but we're talking NASCAR. NASCAR is family owned, they've controlled things, and it goes back to that Big Bill France thinking and stuff. If you're going to try to stand up to me, I'm going to put the foot down. Well, we don't have a big Bill France right now. Bill France Jr. was able to work through these difficulties with many of the teams because he gave them a fair shake. He would go in and he would tell them, hey, you got to do this. But then behind closed doors or off to the side, they knew that they had him in their corner to be able to help them out on certain things. So it's not there. It's not like it used to be here 30 years ago or so when Bill France Jr. was running things. This is a completely different entity. It changed when Brian France came in. When Brian France came in, the son of Bill France Jr., it changed. And then the mentality toward NASCAR changed. And that's where I think we get a lot of things right now about the fans going and saying, I can't afford to go to a race all the time or bring a family to the race because it is so cost prohibitive about being able to take a family. And then what about the teams themselves? I mean, here they are, they're supposed to be on this standard playing field against one another, but obviously the balance and the shift of power in this is being controlled, and it's being controlled by NASCAR.
I think one thing that I'll be looking for with this. Okay, so the journalist in me who likes to know things would
Mm-hmm.
love it if this actually got to trial. I don't know that it's ever going to get to trial. Here's why.
Right.
The discovery process leading up to that, the part of the legal process where, okay, so we're suing you, we're alleging all these violations. We're gonna request, demand, court's gonna order you, NASCAR, to open the books up.
Mm-hmm.
NASCAR is a privately owned company. We don't know anything about the inner workings of NASCAR. In a discovery process, NASCAR all of a sudden is going to have to open its books up for the first time in all those years, 70 plus years. We would then know just how much money NASCAR has made, how it does its business. NASCAR does not want that known. On the other side, teams for many years, put the name of owner here, will tell you, hey, we lose money at this. We never make money at this. As
Right.
part of the discovery process, NASCAR is going to say, if we're ordered to open our books, we want you to open your books. And so I don't know that the teams want that known either. So I think there's incentive to settle. I just, how long it's going to take to get there is going to be the question.
Well, I'm encouraged in one way by this. Sam Cherry, who's an attorney who represented Speedway Motorsports shareholder Francis Furco in an antitrust suit against NASCAR back in 2002, he told Fox Sports in a published article today that he believes that 2311 and Front Row have enough in the complaint to withstand a motion to dismiss. And so I'm like you, I think it's going to happen. But the thing is, will it get to trial? I don't think anybody's going to dismiss this thing. But according to Cherry, he says NASCAR is a very, very tough litigator. But that's not uncommon, especially when the core business itself depended upon prevailing on the antitrust complaint that they had filed back in 2002. Many of the people who were writing about this and going on about it called him up. They asked him questions. Aren't you afraid you're going to be the one that kills the goose that laid the golden egg? And he said, well, perhaps they've got a bigger fear than we do. And people were risk takers. Now, here's the thing. The rumor is going around right now, and Action's Detrimental podcast is where they supposedly said it came from. But there's a hint that Denny Hamlin made the comment that they have been in touch with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who is interested in bankrolling a new racing league or something like that. That would be along the lines of something to compete against Formula One in Europe and be able to do some things, but more importantly, bring it here in America. Now, if that happens, we're going to see a situation develop much like LIV Golf and the PGA and what happened with that. And that still is a sore spot for a lot of these golfers. It's still a sore spot for the PGA. It would definitely be a sore spot for NASCAR. And, hey, look at the other point of this. Denny Hamlin is right now, the rumor has it, he's in danger of losing FedEx as his major sponsor with Joe Gibbs for next year. If that happens, are we going to see, him on his way out, maybe moving to, ownership status and maybe going on a little bit more? That's the reason why I think this year for him is more vital of him winning a championship than any other time he's been in competition. Because if he wins a championship and then he can turn around and say, all right, I've won my championship, I'm done, I'm going over to the business side of this. And what better way to do that in going into a racing league that you helped kind of broker and happen with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Now, a lot of that is some speculation out there from some people, but he says he's talked to somebody, or Michael Jordan has talked to somebody about it. So now we're getting a little bit more of the foreign investment maybe in this sport, something that NASCAR has not had. And we go back to the whole thing about who was the big runners of the cars back in the old days. Ford, Chevrolet, you had the GM products, Oldsmobile, Buick, Pontiac. And now you only have really two American-based cars, and that's Ford and GM. That's the only one, and Chevrolet. And then Toyota got into the mix. Where does this open up for teams coming in that might be looking at, say, going to NASCAR, maybe a Honda, a Volkswagen? Who knows how this is going to go just yet?
I have a question for you about the Saudi possibility here. Okay, so let's just say that there is interest, that Denny Hamlin wasn't blowing smoke, trying to get some leverage here as they're getting ready to go to battle. All right,
Mhm.
so if there's interest and money behind something to bring another racing league like a NASCAR to the United States, where would they race? Doesn't NASCAR own most of the tracks?
Yeah, ISC, International Speedway Corporation, they own a large majority of the tracks, but you also have Speedway Motorsports and Marcus Smith and Company. Now, they have stayed with NASCAR, but, here's the thing. Several years ago, this is back when Bruton Smith was running things before he passed away, there was the rumor and the talk at one point that Bruton Smith would like to go and generate enough interest where they could have a competing league, so to speak, against NASCAR. And I kind of know where that was going because look, NFL, AFL, and then eventually bring both of them to the table and bring them together, and then you have the National Football League. That's sort of like what I think the plan was to do. But it kind of got hushed up, and they went through some rough times and so forth, and then it's kind of been on the back burner. With that, hey, I don't know where they would run at. Speedway Motorsports probably would be the one that would be the most open about doing that. What about Penske? Here you've got, he has ties into International Speedway Corporation. He's worked well with them over the years, but he has Indianapolis. Now, we could see a race going at Indianapolis. I could see that happening. But then you've got COTA. You've got Circuit of the Americas down in Texas. Those are two likely candidates probably that would race. But there you go. That's probably about two out of that group. That there's probably a whole lot more that they would need to race at instead of just those two during the season.
So there's examining that part. I think that what we're going to see here is that this case is not going to be dismissed early on. It's going to linger. It's going to go obviously through the end of this year's playoffs because the way these things make their way through the courts slowly but surely. I mean, assuming it all goes the way I think it'll go, we're talking into next year, maybe a couple of years. This could
Yeah.
linger out. I mean, and so you mentioned the tension in the garage this weekend. Man, what if we get to the start of next season, which I assume we will. We get to the start of next season, and we're getting ready for the Daytona 500 starting the season, and we still got people at each other's throats here. This is gonna be something that's gonna hang over the series head for a while.
It is, unless they work out some kind of Christmas miracle by the time Christmas rolls around, and then they're able to, put all their problems aside by the time February rolls around. I think what surprises me, though, is that Jeffrey Kessler, like what you were talking about, this big guy, this big legal guy out of this whole thing, he said in a comment, he said, our clients are in this until the end. And that's not just blowing smoke, folks. He's in it to the end, and what's going to be is going to be dependent on what the courts rule and allow more than anything else. But according to him, they're going to do their best to keep competing as long as they can, and we expect to add to the legal victory or the settlement that transforms this sport. And there's the key word, transforms this sport, not from what has been the family-owned operation for so many years, but transforms this sport into something that everybody, to one degree or another, if they've got the money, if they've got the affordability about being into this sport, it just opens it up for other people to maybe get involved with it.
I think I agree with the writer for The Athletic who penned the column focusing on Michael Jordan. He started his column by noting the famous quote from Jordan from years ago in reference to one of his playoff series. This became personal to me, and making the point,
Right.
explaining what that meant, which was, now this is more than just something to be upset about. I want to win this. I'm going to win this. You get a competitive guy like Michael Jordan who can't stand to lose, and you get him in a legal fight like this. He's not going to surrender too easily. NASCAR is either going to agree to change fundamentally on its own, or Jordan is going to go all the way to a judge banging a gavel one way or the other. This could be ugly in that sense.
Well, and I look at this from another point of view. Some people might say that Bubba Wallace coming in as an African-American driver is the thing that changed the sport. Yeah, but I've got to admit something here. You've got Michael Jordan, who has been basketball, and everything else, and what he's done, being with the Bulls and so forth. And then he shows an interest in coming into NASCAR. And even though he loved NASCAR and so forth, but here you have an African American who is a co-owner of a team. Brad Daugherty did the same thing, but he's not as prevalent as what Michael Jordan is. And Michael Jordan has walked to the forefront and said, look at us. We're game changers, and that's what we're going to be. And, already in the sport, they've been game changers to one degree or another with, the kind of attitude that they've had, the kind of racing that they've put out on the track. But, here it is. It's exactly like what you said and stuff. It's personal with him. It's personal when he goes to win. And, you and I both know about his thing about betting on the golf course and, his little gambling and things like that. He doesn't bet hoping he's going to lose. He bets hoping he's going to win out of the whole thing. And that's where we come back to this whole thing. He's gambling. Yeah, he's gambling with this one. But you know what? I think he's got more cards up his sleeve to be able to pull out a big win out of this than some people think he does.
Guy fought with his teammates in practice if he lost a scrimmage. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna play this all the way. Well, Rod, this is a fascinating topic. We've been covering it all season long. We might have some more news before the end of the NASCAR season. Hey, as always, thank you for your time and your insight.
I appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.